If a man has this, he's more likely to fall in love. We're going to dive into this conversation today. And let's face it, dating is a roller coaster of emotions. If you're seeking a fully committed relationship, a life partnership based relationship, you probably feel very frustrating with our current dating environment, partly because we no longer meet people in this organic way of literally growing up with the person you're going to spend the rest of your life with. Certainly 100 years ago is that way. And a lot has changed since then. And certainly many of you find yourself in the dating app realm to meet people. And it can be rather frustrating because it might feel like you're telemarketing for a relationship. It might feel like you're dialing for dollars. That was a phrase we used in sales. And yet, the most important question you might want to ask yourself and ask for the man that you want to, the man you might invite into your life, is this very question. Is he committed to commitment? Does he have a long-term mating strategy, a long-term mating strategy? And what I mean to say is a man who has a long-term mating strategy, a man who is committed to commitment, he operates completely different than that person who just needs to fill a void, that person that needs someone to complete them, that person who's just in it for the short run, that game player, that user, the love bomber, and so forth. Or those wounded men who are seeking some sort of, unbeknownst to them, therapy. And a lot of people find them in this place versus the men I talk about, which are called the grower builders. If you haven't seen my chart before, I invite you to check this out. This is not a fact. It's merely an opinion. But I believe roughly 20% of the population are users. They seek short-term goals. They're love bombers, players, gold diggers, entitled people, selfish people. They only care about their own needs. And while I say 60% are spenders, they seek companionship, connection, and sex, but they have no direction, uncertainty, fearful, usually have a dysfunctional life. The reason why they're called spenders is that they'll spend time with you as a placeholder. But the last category I'm talking about, that grower builder, they seek long-term commitment. They're emotionally grown up. They have good relationship skills, and they have their act together. And all of you want that person. Or at least those that are in that category of grower builder, you want that person. And by the way, a lot of you that think you're grower builders might find out that you're not really that person. So when I say a man has a long-term mating strategy, he's more likely to fall in love from a real sense of love and not that lust or limerence most people are chasing in the early stage of dating. See, we've been indoctrinated to believe that chemistry equals relationship success. If we have this amazing instant chemistry, something can grow from that. This is why our dating narrative today is all focused on attraction, entertaining each other, romance, and physical connections with the hope of building something deeper. But then why is it that some people go out on one or two dates, never see a person again? Why is it they date someone for about a month or so and never see them again? See, I think the sweet spot begins after the 90-day period of being with someone. Now, that doesn't guarantee relationship success, but when you consider how many first dates never make it to a second or third date, and how many people get to 10 dates or 10, spend a month together and never form anything beyond that, I would venture to say 990 out of 1,000 barely ever hit that range of 3 months. Now, I'm just making up this number, but go with me for a second. So I think the question begs, how is a man going to shift, not from after the first or second, third date, but how are you going to know that he is committed to commitment? How are you going to know he has a long-term mating strategy? Well, I'm going to give you 10 questions to ask yourself. So pull out a pen and paper. You may want to write this down because these 10 questions might give you some insight into whether or not this man, or yourself, if you're a woman, if you're a man watching this for a woman, if they're capable of leaning into deeper intimacy, deeper connection, deeper love. So This is in no particular order, but you may want to write this down from this vantage point, okay? The first is, have you seen them under stress? Have you seen them under stress? And the way they handle it can make or break a relationship. Think about that. How many times have you seen someone under stress? How do they handle that stress? Many of you know who have followed my channel know I have a lot of stress when I travel. Now I'm aware of this, and because of this, I can regulate my nervous system because I have tools in place to navigate this. Other times I'm in stress is when technology fails me, and believe me, that seems to happen frequently. Not for me today, but just in our environment. I know the other day the internet went out for an entire day, and boy, that was that frustrating to navigate that experience. But how someone handles stress, maybe they, like I talked about earlier, traveling. Maybe they go into a tirade. Maybe they're unable to regulate their emotional system. See, people are unable to do that, struggle in relationship, because guess what? Relationships are going to have conflict. Relationships are going to have problems. How someone regulates their nervous system when they're in stressful situations might be directly affect how they handle conflict in relationship. Because the second question I invite you to ask yourself is, have we disagreed about something important? And how did we repair afterwards? Can someone write this down? First one is, have you seen them under stress? Write that number one. Number two, have you disagreed with them about something important? And how did we repair afterwards? I invite you to really pay attention to this, because one of the fundamentals for a successful relationship is how two people repair when they have differences. Because here's the reality, folks. You're never going to find your carbon copy. You're never going to find your clone. That person doesn't exist. You know, ideally, we like to think, because of the fantasy of chemistry, the fantasy of all that, that we should just be perfectly aligned, that we should read each other's minds. And yet the reality is, you know, it's like sometimes putting a square peg in a round hole. Doesn't mean you can't find a way to make it work. But learning to navigate disagreements is a fundamental for a successful relationship. So remember I said earlier, getting to this sweet spot of 90 days. Now, a lot of people don't find themselves in conflict in 90 days, partially because we have a kind of a long, drawn out dating process. In fact, quite frankly, I think most people aren't even in a relationship who think they are. They're just in a friends with benefits arrangement. We call these casual relationships. Sometimes we call these situationships. I just think it's friends with benefits, and they just don't even know that's what it is in many cases. You see, the real building of love requires going through stages. One of the first stages you should agree upon in a relationship is the agreement to be monogamous and exclusive with one another. In a lot of casual relationships and situationships, they have no agreements with each other. And so hitting that first stage, certainly by the time that two people are having regular sex, many of you know I say when the penis is inside the vagina, you should start having agreements with one another. In fact, if you haven't read the book, and by the way, all the books I recommend today are listed below in Jonathan Recommends Books. If you haven't read 8 Dates by Doctors John and Julie Gottman, I highly recommend at least reading chapter 1 before you're physically intimate with someone, and ideally you both read it. You know what chapter 1 is? Here, let's open the book. Chapter 1. It's called Lean on Me, Trust and Commitment. You may want to study this. I know many of you are just running around with, well, Jonathan, I'm just supposed to sit my feminine energy, and men are supposed to lead the process because men are such good leaders of the relationship. It's the hierarchy of God, man, and the woman underneath it. And I'm just going to follow that because that works so wonderful. I know that you might have noticed I was being a little bit sarcastic, a little rhetorical, a little bit combative when I said that. Why? Because ladies, particularly the ladies are watching, but men too, you are in charge of your relationship destiny. Don't give that up to another human being. And so studying these things, having an understanding, has a better chance of creating this in relationship than this in relationship. So number 2 was have we disagreed about something important, and how do we repair afterwards? This will build the deep roots of trust that lead to love. Number 3, do I feel emotionally safe telling them the truth about my fears, flaws, and my needs? Let me repeat that. Do I feel emotionally safe enough telling them my truth, my fears, my flaws, my needs? You know, it's interesting. Many of you ladies watch my channel. I do this kind of probably inappropriate joke, but because I think many of you have duct tape on your mouth. You're fearful of speaking up. If you're fearful of speaking up in a relationship, if you can't share your truth about your fears, your flaws, and your needs, then what's the point of being in a romantic relationship with someone if you can't be your genuine self? And you're never going to reach a deeper state of love. He's never going to reach a deeper state of love if you haven't reached a point of emotional safety. And again, when you have a long-term mating strategy, when you're thinking about it beyond the performative nature, beyond the attraction, entertainment, romance, and physical connection, when you're actually saying, I want to build deep roots with someone, when you're committed to commitment, you operate radically different. See, ladies, if you're fearful of challenging a guy, I'm here to say, stop it. You want to challenge him from the very beginning. Now, when I say challenge him, you want to establish your standards. A man who's interested in you, he's willing to meet you at your standards. Quite frankly, I think women should be the leaders of relationship anyway, because they have a better understanding of the emotional needs a relationship depends upon for long-term success. Because ladies, you are no longer, most of the time, you're no longer financially dependent upon a man. Number 4, are they curious about my inner world as they are about my body and my lifestyle? Are they curious about your inner world? Are they curious about your emotions? Do they ask questions? You know, I think it's hugely important that we start shifting the narrative from the provider, protective, nurturer, gatherer protective perspective and start focusing on the real importance of being in a romantic relationship. Is this a place where I feel emotionally safe? Are they curious about my inner world? Do they really care about what's going on the inside with me? That's my invitation for everyone. Number 5. Do we have shared values and life goals and openly discuss it? You know, I shared in a video recently, I believe that the 3 questions you should talk about frequently in a new budding relationship during those 90 days and beyond 90 days is, how did we get here? A reflection of your past. Where are we today? Certainly looking at the moment and the things you can do, but ultimately, where do we want to go? Ladies, if you're having regular sex with a guy, you should know where this relationship is going. You should have regular conversations of how you'd like to build a life with someone. We have to stop this drawn out version of years together before we have these conversations. I'm here to say 90 days is the time to shit or get off the pot. Especially if you've been physically intimate with one another. Do we share the same values? Do we have the same life goals? And can we openly discuss these things together? By the way, I know I'm screaming. It's because I'm passionate. I want to get through to you. I want you to stop having duct tape on your mouth. Are you willing to do that with me? Number 6, if there's after the physical chemistry dials down, do we still want them in our lives? Look, there's always a rush of physical chemistry right from the very get-go. Once 2 people settled into a relationship, they may not have sex every single day, although a lot of times for the first year that's the case. But once it dials down, do you still want this person in your life after that lust or limerence phase? These are questions to ask yourself. And when you start going in with these deeper questions, you can start exploring love from more of a heart-centered place. If a man has this, he's committed to commitment, he has a long-term mating strategy, he is open to exploring these questions with you, ultimately having a real dialogue about what love means to you. Write that down. Ask the question, what does love mean to you? Is that something important to you? Find out. By the way, if you ask me what it means to me, I love you means I'm here. You matter. We're important. I've got your back. I'm not going anywhere, and I only want you. I'm here means I'm present. You matter means your feelings matter to the same degree as my feelings matter. We are important means our relationship is a separate entity, and I value this. I've got your back means if you've got a colonoscopy appointment, I'm there for you. I'm not going anywhere. I'm fully committed to this relationship, and I only want you means I only want to ravage your body. I'm not interested in polyamory, swinging, or anything else. I just want you physically. Breathe that in. How's that feel? Share this video with a guy, ladies. Share this video. See how he navigates this conversation. If there's someone you're physically intimate with, start sharing my content with them. See if he relates to it or if he poo-poos it. Number 7, have they shown you consistency in how they treat you, not just how often they see you? Have they shown you consistency on how they treat you versus how often they see you? Treating with respect, with presence, with kindness, with compassion, with empathy, with curiosity. That is the sexy piece. Not if he's 6 foot tall, has a 6-inch penis and 6-pack abs or 6-figure income. Excuse me. There's a lot of dating conversation out there that's centered around that. I thought I'd dive into that. Is he consistent with how he treats you, not how often he sees you? Number 8. Do they feel calmer? Do I feel calmer and more secure as time passes? Do you feel like you're building more trust with the person, or do you feel like you're becoming more anxious and uncertain? If you're starting to feel more anxious, uncertain, that's not a great place to be. So ask yourself, do I feel calmer and more secure as time passes on? That 90-day sweet spot, a guy knows if he's, by the way, a man who's a grower builder, coming back to this, the grower builder, he knows within 90 days if he's in love with someone. He does. The other guys have no fucking clue. But the grower builder, he knows within 90 days whether or not he wants to build a life with someone. And so you should feel secure, calm, instead of anxious or uncertain. Number 9. Have we seen each other in less than romantic settings? The messy house, the family visit, the bad moods. Have we experienced that together? If we've experienced that together and we still want to spend time together, that's certainly a sign of love. And number 10, bump, 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 bump. Do I love, or better yet, do I like who they are? Do I like who they are? Versus who I imagine them to be. Instead of the projection, do you like who they are? You know, if you've answered most of these questions and you're leaning towards emotional safety, consistency, choosing them after the shine wears a bit, you're likely in something real. If most lean towards fantasy, idolization, avoiding harder truth, you're probably still in the infatuation zone. Folks, you know, I say 90 days. The honeymoon period can last much longer than that. But these days, relationships are made or broken very quickly. And 90 days is plenty enough time for that grower builder man to know if he has something real. The man who's committed to commitment, that man who has a long-term mating strategy, he knows whether or not he wants to invest in you. And that man knows if he's committed to commitment and he has a long-term mating strategy, he is more likely to fall in love. And you'll be able to ask these 10 questions with a fair amount of ease, knowing that this relationship has potential. And if you can't get past that, you might have to ask yourself, is this really the right relationship for me? Is this the one that's going to go the distance? Folks, is this sinking in? Is this resonating with you? Please let me know. I'd like to hear your thoughts. Post a comment below. I do my best to read them all in the first 24 hours. As always, if you find value in my videos, please hit that like button. Please share this video. Please subscribe to my channel. Hit that notification bell so you can be notified of new videos. And if you want to connect with me directly, there's links below. Schedule a discovery call with me. See if working with a coach is right for you. Join my group called Midlife Love Mastery. Get all the books I recommend. Follow me on social media. Get my dating vows. You're going to want to read that. All listed below.